I'm so glad you're here. This is a replay of a live training I did inside the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with Lindsey Vestal, and I wanted to make sure that everyone gets access to it. Pelvic health is such an incredibly fulfilling specialty, and it's growing so much. I've been training OT since 2018, and my goal is to have over 10,000 OTs trained by the year 2030. I'm so glad you're here learning about this specialty. I hope that you can join us in the OTs for Pelvic Health Facebook group with me, Lindsey Vestal. I will link to the group below in the show notes and description. Thank you so much.
So I don't know if you get my weekly newsletters that come out every Thursday. The title of this week's was Why the Toughest OT Moments Can Be the Most Rewarding. And I wanted to go live because after I wrote the email, I was like, oh, I just have such a burning desire to talk about this, to have a conversation about this. And so that's why I'm live right now. One of the things that was so enjoyable over the summer was those summer shorts that I was doing. It was OT and Power Hours that were a 10-minute version that linked to the longer version, which was really fun. But I so missed coming on here and having these conversations with you all. So let's roll up our sleeves. Consider this an impromptu OT and Power Hour that is complements my weekly newsletter that came out today. And if you don't get my newsletter, I will include a link as to how to get it because it's really fun to share some pretty provocative and I don't know, I guess intuitions that I have regarding the field, the profession, and just the progress that we all make on a daily basis as we roll up our sleeves and make the best of our careers and our lives as occupational therapy practitioners. So I'll put the link in the comments. It takes you to a map of the OT's world of pelvic health, and then you just add your name to that and you'll get added to my weekly newsletter. All right, so here's the deal. When we talk about the most difficult moments in an OT's life, I kind of think about five basic things that I kind of anchor into or come back to, whether you have been in the field for a decade, whether you have been in the field for just a couple weeks, right? And the five things we're going to talk about still apply to no matter where you are in your journey. Because you've heard me say this before, and I firmly believe it. The best do the basics better. The best do the basics better. So these five things I'm going to be sharing with you today are truly the five things that you can turn to at any point in your journey, in your pelvic health journey, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling underconfident, when you feel what I call is our self-doubt Sally, or that imposter syndrome that kicks in despite where you are in your career. If you're joining live, I'd love to know. Put in the comments where you're joining from. And if you're on replay, you're not off the hook. I love hearing where you're from, so throw it in as well. I hope that today's conversation really gets your creative wheels turning and gets you back out there feeling like you can absolutely do this when you have those moments. All right, number one, you know more than you think you do. I'm going to do a quick review of all five and then we'll dive into the details. Number two, go back to the basics. Number three, you don't have to know everything. And in fact, when you tell your client that you're going to get back to them on whatever it is you didn't know, you're actually earning a tremendous amount of trust for when you do articulate the education that you are sharing, because they know you're an honest, integrity, authentic person. Number four, practice whenever you can. And number five, have a grounding ritual. All right, let's go back to number one. You know more than you think you do. Here's the thing. You know this. We can forget this because we're in this Facebook group together. We geek out on all things pelvic health. But here's the thing. Outside of this little circle that we've got, no one talks about the pelvic floor. Okay? This is a bubble that we're in. It's a beautiful bubble where we live, breathe, and eat all of these topics hours and hours and hours a day. But the rest of the world isn't. And when you come into a session and you share the basics, when you share the most simple, yet simple can be profound, right? It's most likely these simple things that are literally going to move the needle in your client's pelvic floor journey. So you know more than you think you do, and your client likely hasn't had these conversations before, right? And if they do, they had them on Google, they talked to a friend, they read an article in a pop magazine, and it was more than likely not 100% accurate, right? There are so many myths out there. So we just did a poll, I just asked a poll a week ago asking the most common myths, and it was off the chart. You guys threw in so many. We know there's so many myths out there, so many misunderstandings, so many misconceptions about the pelvic floor. Remember, they're coming to you to set the record straight. Trust yourself. Trust that you know more information than anyone else has shared with them, any length of time that they spent sharing with them. So when I say that, what comes to mind for me is a client who has had constipation, and more than likely in the past, someone has told your client with constipation, hey, drink more water. Water will help the stool go down the colon with greater ease, right? Dehydration is the number one thing we want to avoid with constipation. They have more than likely heard this before. This is not novel, right? Also, what's something else? If you're joining me live, put it in the comments. Like, what is something else that more than likely your client has heard if your client has been constipated? Well, more than likely, what comes to mind for me is talking about fiber, insoluble fiber, soluble fiber. Someone was probably talking to them about water and fiber. Maybe even not about talking about not straining, right? Some of these topics probably came up, fine. But here's what you bring to the table that's different. You probably have 45 to 60 minutes to go into so much more depth with them as to why. So someone can tell you to drink water, but if someone doesn't tell you why that's going to help the burning symptom that I came into your office today to see you for, I'm probably not going to be motivated enough, right? I know I'm supposed to drink water. I hate drinking water, right? Why? Why are you telling me that? Link that to my symptom and give me the motivation to do it. So part of what we're doing as OTs in pelvic health is evoking behavioral change. And if we're not giving them the self-efficacy behind the why are we asking them to drink water? I personally feel like we're not doing our job, right? So we have the gift of time to explain. We have time to hear their questions. We have time to explore some of the previous barriers as to why in the past, when their last practitioner told them to drink water, why didn't they? Why didn't they follow through with that sage-old advice we all know to be true? Here's the thing. As an OT in pelvic health, you can problem solve these issues with them. I guarantee whoever before you told them to drink water, told them to add more fiber in their diet, more than likely didn't stop and take the time to problem solve the barriers of why it hasn't been working. And this is gold. This is gold. We have the time as OTs. We have the expertise as OTs. We have the motivational interviewing background that is truly going to be the reason why our clients do it differently this time. Also, probably that other person who told them to drink water, like briefly scribbled it down on a piece of paper that was probably illegible. And probably when the client sees the person the next time, they probably didn't ask them how it went. Were you actually able to drink that water we talked about? Were you able to incorporate a couple cups of raspberries throughout your week like we talked about, right? Taking the time to follow up and problem solve is everything. So number one, you know more than you think you do. Share that knowledge with your clients. Number two, go back to the basics. Go back to the basics. The basics are breath, posture, nervous system regulation, sleep hygiene, connection with the partner, right? So let's tie this into something really tangible again with this constipation client, right? So I'm thinking about a client who came in and saw me, and perhaps you have the expertise to do rectal balloon training. Perhaps you have the expertise to refer out to a naturopath because you want to get them tested for SIBO or mold or fungus, right? And all of these things that perhaps your client has read about and is drawing conclusions that may be contributing to their problem. Perhaps you throw to them that soluble, all of the options they have for soluble and insoluble fiber. Now, do all of these things move the needle? Absolutely they can. In fact, the rectal balloon training comes to mind because I just recorded an episode with, shout out to Kayla Heggie, all about the importance of balloon training that's coming out in the next couple weeks. It's a huge tool. It's a fantastic tool. It helped me in my pelvic health journey. I also believe in SIBO testing. I've had SIBO before. This was amazing. All of these recommendations are valid and important and brilliant. But the thing is, we often have to spend those first couple of sessions with our approach helping to motivate behavioral change and build self-efficacy. And if we throw a bunch of referrals, a bunch of time-intensive, complex recommendations for supplements and bowel testing and other complicated recommendations, I think it can really overwhelm our client. And when we do the basics, we're often spending time to build the rapport. We're finding out about their roles and their habits and their routines, because when they come back for that second session or that third session, we're actually spending time with them to investigate what were their observations, what did they discover, what were some of those things that will move the needle in our client's symptoms. And when we do that, we're really starting to uncover more things that are actually the root cause to their symptoms. So, for example, that client that I mentioned that I'm thinking about, it was a client who had constipation. She did not want to spend time sitting on the toilet. In fact, she would be there for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute tops. She says, I can't go, and she'd head out the door. And this would go on every single day, and to the point where she was constipated for 5 or 6 days before having a bowel movement. So we talked about the importance of breathing on the toilet and giving yourself a few minutes to arrive and, soften and not feel like that thing just outside your door is waiting for you, right? That sense of urgency, that sense of rush. This was like all of my New York City clients, right? In a nutshell. And we started talking about this and about her why. Like, why does this urgency exist? She remembered something that she hadn't thought about in years, which was when she was a kid, she had cousins that lived next door, and the doors were open all the time, right? So her cousins would come to her house, she would come to their house. It was like a very open family relationship. And if her cousins happened to come over right after school, which is usually when she had a call for stool, if she spent any longer than a minute in the bathroom, her cousins would start making fun of her and knocking on the door and rushing her. Now, this probably happened, I don't know, once or 2 or 3 times in her life, but it made such a huge impact on her self-esteem, on her self-consciousness, that when we started bringing up some of those barriers to sitting on the toilet for a while, she had this aha moment. She probably hadn't thought about this story since she was a kid, 7 or 6 or 8 years old, but because we're giving time for our client to problem solve and process some unconscious beliefs around toileting, that was the thing that gave her fodder for behavioral change. These are the things that are going to come out when we work with the basics. We start to truly uncover the whys our client isn't being successful at some of that sage advice that many people have given them before. So I think that with the basics, we get client buy-in and it develops trust. It's not complicated. It allows us to have those conversations around why things work, why things are not working, and we get to the root of the cause of why this stuff is happening to begin with. Remember, the time you spent with clients is everything. Use that time to build rapport and make connections that are going to lead to lifelong changes. All right, number 3. You don't have to know everything, and that's totally okay. This is something I say to my OT Pioneers students every single time we meet. So I launch OT Pioneers 2 or 3 times a year. The next time is actually September 11th through the 15th. It only opens a couple times a year, even though you get lifelong access and it's self-paced. But I do that because I have cohorts that I coach through, because we do have group mentorship calls. And they always say to me that they feel like they need to know everything before they can start seeing clients, right? And I want to say to you right here, right now, that is not the case. If you don't know the answer, just say to them, I know someone who does, and I'm going to get back to you. I am going to follow up and let you know. Now, actually follow up. Actually do what you said you do. Be that person of integrity, because what that will demonstrate to them is that you are an honest person. And when you admit what you don't know, it actually creates more value around what you do share, what you do know. It lets them know that you know your stuff and that you are a person of integrity. What you do share, they believe, and that when you do follow up with something, you actually do. That is gold to them, because you found out the answer, you led them to that next resource, and it led them down that path of further discovery. So I'd like to reframe this idea that you don't have to know everything. You are a knowledgeable person that they hold in high regard. And if you can't answer every single question, my friends, they still respect you and trust you that much more and see you for the expert that you actually are. Okay, number 4. Are you still with me? Do I have anyone joining me live? Put it in the comments. I'm on a different screen today, so forgive me if you have asked me a question and I haven't seen it come in. My screen looks funny to me today, but if you're here, thank you for being here. If you're on replay, thank you for being on replay, and just put in the comments where you're joining from. Number 4 is practice. Practice, 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 right? Whether this means with friends, family, study groups, play groups, finding people that you can really work with to build your confidence. In New York City, you've probably heard me say this before, I started a pelvic floor study group, and it was a phenomenal place that helped me practice, but it also helped me really hone in my skills. And I would, just get back from a course, and I would say to a fellow practitioner, like, hey, I got to practice. Like, do you have time this weekend? Can we get together, right? And work out the kinks. And so this circle really served to be a place of refuge for me to build skills and to hone skills. Okay, last but not least, I hope you're still with me. Last but not least is find a way to ground yourself. So I still get nervous before seeing clients, and I've been doing this for over a decade. It is totally natural. And honestly, I'm grateful for it. I have had jobs in an unrelated field before where I stopped feeling the excitement or that edge. I kind of went into complacency. Maybe I felt a little confident. Maybe I felt bored. I don't know. But now when I found pelvic health and I realized that every single client has a different diagnosis, every client may have the same diagnoses. Let's say I see constipation, because that's today's theme. I see 2 or 3 clients back to back with constipation. It doesn't matter, because the set of their circumstances, their needs, their goals, and the time they have to commit to home exercises is still going to vary. So I still get this tingling of nervousness before I see everyone, right? Because everyone is going to have a different set of needs. It's not cookie cutter, which is what we love. We love that. And if you feel this way, I want you to know that nervousness is really a guide, and it's a reaffirmation. You're in the right field and you're not alone, right? And so this is why having a nervous system down regulating technique is so important. When I first got started, I had a backlog, I had a waiting list. So when I first started my own practice, so I scheduled client after client after client after client. And that burnt me out. So I started just spending some time allowing my brain to decompress. It was 5 minutes at first. Eventually, I found that I needed closer to 10 minutes. But whether it's grabbing a cup of peppermint tea, I would get on the ground and do some rotation exercises. Sometimes I would call a quick friend. Sometimes I would just stare at a wall, let's be honest, right? But when I felt centered, it helped me to reset between clients, and it enabled me to show up as my best self for that second client of the day, for the third client of the day. Okay, those are my top 5 tips. If you have any tips that you want to add, what are things that you do to recenter, please throw them in the comments. I love learning from you. I love knowing what's worked for you. So without further ado, I bid you a beautiful, beautiful rest of the day, and I can't wait to learn from you in the future. One last thing, a week from tomorrow is the OTs for Pelvic Health Summit. I cannot wait to meet you in person if you're coming. If you're joining us for a streaming ticket, which are still available because the in-person is sold out, but the live streaming is not, I cannot wait to see you there. And I'm wishing you all a beautiful, beautiful day.